talk tonight about humble beginnings. We've talked about hurt, pain, and yet we've talked about victory. I began my life very humbly, as my birth mother was a prostitute and an alcoholic on the streets of San Francisco. But just on the other side of the bay here in Oakland, California, there was a woman who was 34 years of age who was praying her last prayer at 14th and Adeline in West Oakland. And she had told God that she was not going to ask for a child anymore after this final prayer, because obviously it was not his will. A phone call came when she got to downtown Oakland. There was a store called the Gray Shop, and at that store a phone call came, and it was our cousin from San Francisco letting her know that I had arrived 2 days before, and wanting to know if she wanted this little baby girl. She said yes. She called her husband, my father, and they picked me up. And the thing that I do like to share for several reasons is because when you have children, you need to give them back to the one that created them. And my mother told me throughout my life that she took me to 10th Street near Beth Eden Baptist Church. That's where we had our home in West Oakland. And she took me in the backyard and she lifted me to heaven. And my life since then has not always been easy, but it has always been protected. And so what are we trying to tell you tonight? Well, I got raped when I was 7 years old, like many of the stories you've heard. And you know, within the church that I was raised in, they didn't like to talk about things like that. And the thing that really bothers me now, I'm now 64 years of age, and we still don't like to talk about it. But there are people that are coming in our doors every Sunday morning who have been wounded, and they just need someone to listen. We don't always need to hear, "I'll pray for you," because we know that many times I've said, "I'll pray for you," and if I don't pray for you right then, I'm probably going to forget by the time I get home. And so what we need is a loving heart, a listening ear, and knowing that people really care. I wrote something a few weeks ago from my heart at 6 o'clock in the morning. I had met a young lady on San Pablo Avenue, which is our territory now, who was thin and pregnant. That young lady said that she was about to have her baby at any moment, any time. And a friend of hers had been through our program, and she said, "Miss Johnny, you need to know the whole story." And the whole story was that that baby already was addicted to heroin. And the only time the baby moved was when it wanted its fix. And so we already know that that child is coming in with a few problems from the very beginning of its life. But I also know that God knows, and he knows what to do. Now, what am I saying tonight? I didn't write anything down. I thought about it for a while, and many have heard my story many times. But what I thought about is, what are we doing? Whether you're in the body of Christ or not, what are we doing? We read in our newspaper every day about what's happening in the streets of Oakland and throughout the nation and the world. What are we doing? Because if all we are doing is talking about it, going, our young people are dying for the lack of some knowledge. And yet many of us go to our comfortable homes and we drive our comfortable cars, and every now and then we either participate in handing out some food. But what would happen if we did a concentrated effort to either totally support the people who have been assigned to the streets and to the hospitals and to the drug dens and to the jails? What would happen if the body of Christ, and not only just us, but people that really care, would stand up and fight for people to be free from all that keeps them bound? What would happen? And so tonight, as we end this evening, I just want you to go home and think about some things that you haven't even shared with someone. I want you to think about that young person that you may work with or talk to or on the bus or see, that young person that you walk by because you're afraid. And I want to tell you that we are called as a people to do a work here to help other people. That's why we are here. I was just thinking briefly of how a young man talked to me not too long ago, and he identified himself as a shooter. And now I've been around and through and all over places to understand that that means he carries a gun and he uses it. Now, what if we all were so frightened that we didn't take the time like I had to do to listen to what he had to say, and all he really wanted to say was, I just need somebody to listen and care about me. And so I didn't open the Bible, and I didn't ask him if he knows Jesus, and I didn't start a prayer, but I asked him, what can I do for you today? And all he wanted was for someone to listen and for someone to care. So, I want you to leave with those thoughts. It's no longer good enough. We can let the city be overtaken because we're afraid. Or we can stand up and show love for our young people, for our wounded people, for those who are imprisoned. And let me tell you, maybe not in this crowd tonight, but there are many people who are sitting in million-dollar homes, driving the best cars, got the best jobs, and are in prison. A prison of not being free to say who you really are. So we're going to end this tonight with a song. And that song just really says, I need you, and you need me, because we are all a part of God's family. But it says one more thing that I'd like to leave. I won't hurt you with words from my mouth. I love you, and I need you to survive.